Hi, hello there. My name is Kurt David Lanipao, and I am here to tell you how my NST training might have possibly saved my hand. Now, before I tell you on how the training might have saved my hand, I have to give you a little bit of context of what happened during that little incident. So, I was taking my usual journey from Balantoy to Tabuk City, because that's where I go to for school, St. Tony's College. I was taking my usual trip there, and in my way, I hit a red pickup truck, and that happened in the straight highway in between Kalanan and Tabuk City itself. So the straight highway after the bridge, after Kalanan, I was speeding a bit because I did have something to do with our upcoming subject that I wanted to do before I arrived to school, so I wanted to arrive at my boarding house a little bit earlier. Now, because of that, I was going in a much higher speed than recommended for most bikers. Even though it is a straight road, it was still crowded because it was the early morning. A lot more people are going to Tabuk City to start their jobs or either go to school. So the road was a bit crowded, and that might have contributed to the accident. Now, how it happened was I was speeding, I was evading a lot of cars in order to get to my destination faster and finish that task that I was planning to do. Now, because of that, I crashed into a red SUV. Now, the crash was not very fatal, mind you. I was able to react at just that moment in order for me to not crash directly at the rear end of the car and only the side of the car where the brake lights will be. In that time, the car slowed down because there was a really tiny dip down at the road, because in that dip down was the end of the asphalt and into the more cemented part of the road. So most cars will slow down even though they don't really need to slow down, if you get what I'm saying. Now, because that car slowed down, I only had enough time to react to not crash directly at the rear and possibly throw myself into their dump box. Because it's an SUV, the brakes of an SUV are quite powerful, even more powerful than that of a bike. So I was able to evade with just enough time for me to only damage my left hand. Now, the damages on my left hand were not too severe, but it was bad enough that I was not able to use my left hand properly for 2 weeks. Now, the damages on my left hand were mainly with my fingers. I was using gloves, but they were not these. They were fingerless gloves. Fingerless gloves are basically the same type of gloves, except the finger sleeves are removed. So the damages on my hand were my 4 main digits. This was the one which was badly damaged. My other 3 fingers were not as badly damaged as my pinky. Now, for the damages on my hand, my pointer finger's nail got split in half. Maybe because of the pressure on my clutch lever, putting pressure into my nail and cracking it. My middle finger was not too badly damaged. It was only a bunch of shrapnel of the glass hitting this part. So this was only mainly bleeding, but I was able to use this finger sooner than the others. My ring finger, however, had internal damage. Under my nail, there was a lot of bleeding. So I could not use this for quite a while. But the worst damage of all was my pinky, which still has a cracked nail and still has the wound channel, or still has a scar right here running along my nail all the way down to here. I'll show you a picture of what the damage looks like. It is a little bit gruesome, but that is after a little bit of blood has dried up. Now, if you can see, my finger was split open and looks like it was peeling, kind of like a banana. Now, I suspect that is because of the impact itself that made that kind of damage. I don't think there was any shrapnel that would have caused that unless there was. I didn't really check the debris left because the driver of the SUV picked the debris back up. So after I crashed into the car, I was lucky enough to not fall to the side of the road and possibly get crushed by the upcoming traffic right behind me. And I was able to maneuver myself into the side of the road for me to assess my damage and to talk with the driver of the SUV. I was lucky that the driver of the SUV was nicer than most drivers in that kind of situation. I fully expected the driver to scream and yell at me and possibly hit me in the face, because in those most cases, it's the biker's fault. And I wouldn't say it's not my fault. It's partially my fault for speeding. But at the same time, that is a highway where slowing down is not really recommended when you are in the inner lane. And what I mean by that is because the inner lane is usually more reserved towards cars that drive faster. So I did not expect them to slow down into less than 30 kmph. And that led to me crashing into the car. After we both maneuvered to the side of the road, he checked up on me to see if there was anything wrong with me and offered to carry me to the provincial hospital, which was the closest hospital in the path of the crash. I rejected their offer because I didn't think that was too much of an emergency. So he told me that he was in a rush and he has to get to work, so his wife asked for my number to check up on me once they have time. And so they left to their own destination while I sat at the side of the road and called up my big brother to come and pick me up. While I was waiting for my brother to arrive, I bandaged my hand up a bit using the training bandage that was given to us when we joined the training program for NSTP. And that's the part where the training actually saved my hand. So the kind of bandaging strategy that I did was to wrap my entire hand in the cloth and secure a knot into my wrist. I'll show you a picture of that technique right here. And basically that helped the bleeding a bit and protect my hand from infection. So once my brother arrived, he brings me to our boarding house where I was able to reassess myself on what happened and also tell him how the whole accident happened. And in the meantime, I was able to wash away the debris from my wounds and wrap myself with more sterile bandaging. A couple months passed and now my finger is fully healed and I did not need to amputate it thanks to the NSTP program that I took. Well, it was more like the NSTP program that my friends taught me because I was not able to join the training program myself due to family affairs. But nonetheless, the NSTP program was able to help me save my hand. So that is the importance of NSTP training programs. I do recommend you to join them in case you do get into an accident similar to mine, in which you can apply your training in order to help save lives or save your own. Before I close up the video, there's a few things that I would like to tell you as a biker that helped me survive this long in my biking career. Because being a biker is a lot more dangerous than people think. One is to always wear gear. And by gear, I mean helmets, riding shoes or riding boots, the proper protective jacket, gloves, and eyewear if you don't like using your helmet's visor. Speaking of helmets, I don't really recommend you stick to the factory helmet that was given to you together when you bought your bike, just because by my experience from those are not sturdy enough in order to help you survive a crash. Now I'm using an Evo ARO1 helmet that I bought from Tuguegarao, and it has saved me dozens of times judging by the scratches right here and right here. Another is wearing gloves, and by gloves I do not mean fingerless biker gloves because I no longer recommend those because that was the reason why my fingers were damaged in the first place. If you ask me, I would have preferred it if I had these gloves that I currently am wearing when I had that little accident. Because if you remember, the injury was where there was no protection from the gloves, which are the fingers. The rest of my hand was covered, so it was kept safe. And that's why I don't recommend fingerless gloves. Another piece of biker equipment are the biker boots or biker shoes. Having solid footwear is a lot more important than some people might think. Or at least it is very important to me. I am often riding in off-road terrains, and that's why I value sturdy footwear whenever I'm going around for my trips. Because I have noticed that rocks will sometimes fly in very high speeds and will hit me in my foot that might have damaged my toes if it weren't for my solid biker boots. Another thing I'd like to tell you about are med kits, or some people may call them first aid kits. Your first aid kits should contain the following. 1. Bandages. Sterile bandages for wounds and other applications. A piece of cloth is more versatile than you think. 2. Tourniquets to stop heavy bleeding. Because if the accident wasn't enough to take you out, bleeding out to death surely will. And that's all for today's videos. Have fun and stay safe on the road. This has been Kurt David Anipao signing out.